our youth has passed. The trade-off is you gained a little wisdom.
Hey, this is Adreana with the Girls Gone Menopause podcast. Allison Evers is away. If I sound just so much more professional and rich in my voice, it's because we are in the fantastic studio of our special guest. Now, each one of you has been in this situation or knows someone who has. You are about to get divorced. You know your marriage is falling apart. Or your husband has announced to you that he is divorcing you and you were totally caught off guard. In either case, you've got to figure out your money and you've got to figure out where you're going to live. Your children are grown and gone. You don't need this big old house. You want to consolidate and conserve your funds. So you decide that you are going to purchase a condo or maybe even a mobile home in one of these high-end mobile home parks that we have in California. And this is what our special guest is going to talk to you about today. When you buy into an association, it sometimes can come with challenges. Our guest today is Michael Kushner. He is a real estate lawyer and the author of the book, HOA Hell, California Homeowners Definitive Guide to Beating Bad HOAs. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Adriana. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Michael, I am going to get right into it. You and I have known each other for a very long time, but tell me, how long have you been practicing real estate law?
I've been practicing real estate law from day one, so since 1998. And I have been focusing, we don't use the word specialized because of rules with the state bar, but I've been focusing my practice on homeowner side HOA law, meaning that I represent only homeowners in disputes with their HOAs for about at least 15 of those years, although for the last 20-something years, I did HOA cases, of course, but I'm the one that I actually became a niche area of my practice about 15 years ago, and I was really the first one in California to create this niche. So I would say for well over 20 years, but 15 years where it's been a niche practice area.
So you heard the man, he knows what he is talking about. And let me tell you, I purchased the book and I can tell you it is filled with actionable insights. A lot of times you get these books and all they're doing is not really giving you actionable information, just giving you an overview. And then they tell you, if you have a deeper situation, why don't you call our law office? It's just basically a book, a marketing pamphlet, packaged as a book. But this one actually has actionable insights, which is why I asked Michael for an interview, because I want to talk about what menopausal women are often going through. Frankly, it's divorce. And then they got to reconfigure their whole lives. And then that includes finding another place to live. And Michael, you told me right when I brought up this topic that you had some things to say. So before I get in with my questions, what is the first thing you need to tell women who are coming out of a marriage? They are not going to have as much income as they had hoped, or their children are grown. They literally don't need a big old house, and they're buying into a condo or a mobile home. What do they need to look out for? Speak to me.
Okay, so there's a lot to say. That's a big question to unpack. So I'm going to give you a brief answer and then kind of rely on you to ask me specific questions. Yes. Obviously, downsizing is a great idea. There's no point wasting money that you could have working for you elsewhere, unless, of course, the real estate market is such that holding on to the larger house, if you can afford it, is a good idea. Then do that. But downsizing is a very common way to go, especially for women in the situation you've described. And when you downsize, because of the ubiquity in Southern California particularly, but all over California, condominiums and other connected types of housing, like townhomes, for example, are often the way to go. It's a way to get into you can get into a very luxurious or high-end unit and still pay much less than you would for a single-family home in a traditional single-family neighborhood, perhaps where you came from. But there are challenges and risks associated with that, and there really is no way to escape those. If you want to live in a condo or a townhome, you're not going to escape the HOA. You're just not.
Right.
But there are things to look for and places you can avoid. And so today, and I hope you'll ask me about these things, one of the biggest things I would ask somebody to look at is talk to some of the people that live there and find out how the boards the board treats the members.
Okay.
How is management? I would take a look at as part of just California law, when you're buying into an association, the seller is obligated to give you the governing documents as well as the prior years, whatever, for that fiscal year's budget and other financial disclosures, including what lawsuits might be going on at the time, and a copy, and this is the important part, a copy of the most recent reserve summary for the reserve study. And it's that summary. There's one number you need to look at.
Which is?
It's called the percent funded number. It's typically on the first page of the reserve summary, and it's got a percent sign, and it'll say something along the lines of reserve percent of funded or funded reserves, and then a percent number, 68, 70%. That's the number you want to look at.
Tell us why.
Okay. And for those listening, if you wanted more information than I'm giving here, I have on our podcast on YouTube, HOA Hell, I have a 2-part episode on how to read reserve studies.
And if you go down into the description for this episode, I'm going to link to that particular episode from Michael's podcast. And I totally recommend you subscribe to his podcast. Please go on.
Okay. So that percent funded number is critically important because just as an overarching understanding, it is a honest look at the financial health of that HOA. The last thing you want, and especially the situation that you're talking about and the people you're talking about, is to buy into a condominium complex and then within a year or two face a special assessment of $10,000, $20,000, or $30,000 per household.
Because of maintenance that they didn't do, because they weren't keeping up with the schedule of maintenance that came with the initial developer documents.
Rarely is it a result from, for example, there are very few instances where a special assessment of any real size, anything more than $5,000, is warranted. That is results from something other than negligence, except an act of God, like
earthquake,
the huge fires we had last year in 25. To the extent that, special assessment might be necessary to cover something that isn't covered by insurance, I could see that. But for the most part, these huge assessments we're seeing, and it's because of the balcony law in California, because of these huge assessments we're seeing that in many communities, even communities where you have, let's say, elders who have limited disposable income, or they're on fixed incomes, we're seeing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 per household special assessments. That can ruin you. And if you don't pay it, you can lose your home.
Yep.
You're getting foreclosed on by the HOA. So that percent funded number tells you that overall what the financial health is. And let me just give you a very quick summary of what that really means.
Go on.
There are three factors that go into the reserves. Okay, or three terms you need to understand. Okay, one of them is a component's useful life. A component's anything owned by the HOA.
The water heater in the back.
The pool equipment, the lawn chairs, the fences, the landscaping, the balconies, the patios, the greenscape, whatever is owned by the HOA. Okay. Each of those is called a component, and every one of those has a useful life. If you're in a condo or a townhome, the roofs often. If your townhome is classified as a condo, the roof. In some townhomes that are not classified as condos, but they're classified as single-family homes, then however many people live in that building will own the roof jointly, and it won't be the HOA. But for condos, it's the roof, for example. So, for example, roofs usually have a useful life of 25 to 30 years. Okay.
Right.
During that time period, so useful life is, this is how long this component is set to last.
Just like your washer and dryer, whatever.
And this is scientific. This has been going on for a long time. And the people that come up with these numbers, these things are absent environmental factors or weird weather or climate that affects a useful life.
Which is real.
Right. But either for the benefit or not. On a dry year, if you have less moisture, you might get an extra couple of years, right? But that's why professional licensed people that do the inspections will increase or decrease useful life. It's a dynamic scale. But useful life is how long is something supposed to last, typically. Okay. The next useful term is remaining life. Okay. How many years have gone by from the 0 year of the useful life versus how many remain? It's just mathematical computation. That can be adjusted based on changes in useful life during the lifetime of a component. But for the most part, it's just a simple subtraction or addition problem. And then you have reimbursement costs or the cost of replacement. At some point, that balcony won't just be maintained and repaired, but it will be replaced at the end of its useful life, or that roof will need to be replaced. So you can't see the future. So the number that they use is, if we did it today, how much would we need to have to pay for that?
Okay.
How much would in labor and materials?
Okay.
Okay. Now, obviously, there could be factors like COVID, increase the cost of everything from lumber to drywall, right? So, or just common inflation. Mm-hmm. But you can't read the futures. You got to go by what you get.
Right.
So those three things, the reimbursement cost. And the idea here is that every component at the end of its useful life, there's enough money in the reserve account to pay for that component.
Without assessing everybody.
Without any assessment. So if you were able to 100% pay for every component that came up at the end of its useful life year after year, you'd be at 100% funded.
Right.
Now, no HOA in California is 100% funded. Let me tell you this. I've never seen an HOA in the 90s. If your HOA is in the mid 80s or down to 80, you are in fantastic shape.
Got it.
I mean, you are premier shape. If you're anywhere in the 70s, you're in good shape.
Okay.
If you're between 65 and 70% funded,
watch out.
No, 65 to 70, pay attention.
Okay.
Obviously, 65, pay attention. 66, a little less. 67, a little less. 68, 70, you're okay. Okay. So between 65 and 69, pay attention. Keep your eye on it over the next couple of years and see if it's going up or down. Okay. But anywhere from 60 to 65, I'd start being concerned. And anything in the 50s, I would worry heavily. Now, my opinion is more aggressive than the opinion of a national organization out there who handles these reserve studies. Okay. They list anything in the 50s as being keep an eye out, and anything in the 40s as being concerned. I think that's ridiculous.
Right. Especially for a woman who's divorced and needs to watch her money.
40 cents on the dollar is absurd.
Right.
So if you want to be careful, you go with mine. Okay. I would never, ever buy into a condominium or townhome association with a percent funded of less than 65.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
I would run. Now, if it's in the 50s, I'd run screaming.
Okay.
No matter what. The only time I would consider moving into something in the 50s is if two things were clear or true. One, it was an investment property for me and not being my primary.
Not where I'm going to live.
Right. And if the price I was getting reflected the potential cost plus 200%
So
more.
go back. I'll
explain that.
Okay.
So let's say I'm looking at a property and the fair market value, if everything was great, if the HOA was in good shape, if the house was in good shape, if there were no defects anywhere, house is worth $500,000, 500 grand. But we know, there's been a disclosure here by the seller or the HOA has already issued a special assessment of 40 grand, right? It's not enough for the seller to give me a $40,000 discount on the price.
Okay.
So now I'm paying $420.
Okay.
Instead of $5. That's not enough because an HOA that's assessing that much has probably got other things
problems
wrong.
that haven't.
So I would say no. I'm not going to buy for $420. I'll buy for $320.
Because I know down the line there's other things they neglected.
If somebody was going to give me a $500,000 property for $320, knowing that I was going to pay a $40,000 assessment immediately and probably one or two more, then I would consider it. But then get ready for months and months of construction and heartache and
right.
whatever.
Now, where can they look to see? So
they will be given as part of a mandatory package under the disclosure laws in California.
Go on.
The seller must give a copy of the CC&Rs, the bylaws,
right,
the rules and regulations or architectural guidelines,
right,
the prior that year's fiscal budget,
right,
and either the reserve study if it was done that year because it's every 3 years, or in the intervening years the practical and required disclosure of a summary of the reserve study, and the summary and the reserve study both contain that percentage.
Where can the potential buyer look to see a schedule of the last 10 years maintenance to see what is going to fall apart?
They won't be able to see the last 10 years maintenance. What they can ask for is a copy of the prior reserve study. Okay. So let me give you an example.
Go on.
Full reserve study is required every 3 years. So if you're in the intervening 2 years, then not only will the prior reserve study be the one in effect, right? But meaning the one that was done 2 years ago. But because you have to keep documents for at least 5 years here, the prior reserve study will be available. Okay. Now, some HOAs have 2 or 3 prior reserve studies.
Right.
Ask for what you can get. At worst, you should be able to get whatever the current reserve study is, whether it's in its first, second, or third year, meaning a new one's about to come, and the prior one.
Okay.
So if you have a new one about to come, you might have access to 3 at a minimum at some point. But there should be at least 2 you can grab. But they're only obligated to give you whatever was in the disclosures from the prior year. And if you are now on year 1 of a reserve study, then it should be the full reserve study.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll be a reserve study summary. Either way, that percent will be there.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, even though my 2-part episode on this very topic, and I actually have a whole chapter in my book about this.
Okay.
But even though I go into great detail into how to read reserve studies, it is complicated. It is not. An accountant will be natural. Everybody else is going to struggle. It's okay to ask your accountant or find somebody that's good with numbers to help you with it.
All right. So then that gets to my next question. I'm getting divorced. I'm thinking about a bunch of other things. Do I need, if I know I'm going to buy a townhome, or
Just
if
look
I know
at
I'm
the
going to
reserve percentage.
But do I need to get, when I go to Century 21, do I need to ask for an agent who sells condos? Somebody who's going to be experienced in this.
As long as you're getting an agent that's usually you want an agent, you know what area you want to go to, right? I want to go to Rossmore. I want to go to Aliso Viejo. I want to go to Laguna Niguel. I want to go to Long Beach, wherever.
Right.
Get an agent that sells a lot of properties there. That's all you need.
Okay.
Any residential real estate agent, okay, is going to know more than the average person about HOAs. Now, I would not say that they have any understanding about HOA law.
Right.
They're not lawyers,
No.
and they have no training on that. And the amount of knowledge each will have differs just as much as the amount of knowledge individuals have.
Okay.
Okay. So that's why you want to plug into sources where the expertise is given. My website, for example, I have 180 articles and fact sheets that are published on every topic you can imagine on HOAs, including multiple ones on reserve studies.
Okay.
That's where you want to look.
Okay.
You want to go to my book, let's say. You want to go to my podcast. But the agent will at least know what the required disclosures are.
Okay.
But I'm telling you now, that's one of them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, I don't recommend before you buy looking at past reserve studies because it's really hard to read those and you're not going to get as much as you need.
Okay.
Use the percent funded as a shortcut.
Okay.
If it's in the 70s or even more incredible, the 80s, then you're gold. Now, I will say this. If you're buying in a single family home neighborhood, that percentage is less important than it is in connected housing.
Right.
The importance in connected housing is staggering. The importance in my neighborhood is much less so. Our reserve percentage is 63. Now, it was 75 a couple years ago. Why? Well, because California Fire Authority looked at our hillsides and said, you need to cut back, blah, blah, blah. Gave us 2 years to do it, and it's at $300,000 for our landscapers to take care of it. And that money had to come out of the reserve. So our funded literally just tanked.
Right.
But even if it was at that low number that normally I'd be very concerned about, I don't care because my components, I own them all.
Right.
In our community, it's the roads and the landscaping, pretty much.
Right.
And some of the green areas and the gates and the cameras. That's it.
Right.
That's it. In a condo, it is
everything.
It is your ceiling. It is your
the water
roof,
heater,
your
the pool,
walls, everything that you rely on. That keeps your home going. And so it is so much more important. So you really got to be careful. There are way too many condos out there where the percent funded is dangerously low. If it's in the 50s, like I said, run. There are well-run condos. Look for one of those.
Okay. So then my next question is, what does the potential buyer need to look at as far as the management company? Because the HOA is the entity, but then they typically have a company that they ask to run it for them. How do you know if it's a good one or one that you're going to have problems? Like, what do you need to look for?
Okay. And that's a harder question to answer in a short interview because there's so many permutations. So I don't mean to toot my own horn or sell my own stuff, but you might want to put a link in your description on the 2-part episode I have on bad managers and management companies as well. I have 2 separate podcasts, one on management companies and one on bad managers.
Okay.
I also have several articles on my website, at least 3 fact sheets on my website about managers and management companies that go into detail how to spot the bad ones. Because
that's the one. Okay.
When we talk about bad ones, we're talking about everything from ignoring, taking advantage of a weak board and kind of running things on their own and taking care of things that they are not authorized by law to take care of, all the way up to embezzlement.
Woo!
Okay. I did a podcast where I talked about that huge embezzlement case that was all over the news in Santa Monica, a very, very high-end condo community right on overlooking the San Diego, the Santa Monica Pier, like right on the water. Wilshire in the water, and I think it was Wilshire something. I can't remember the name of the community. Over $1 million embezzlement. Okay, and it was in the cahoots between a family that owned 3 units there, I think it was 3, and a conspiring manager. And between them, over a period of 6 or 7 years, they embezzled over $1 million. Wow. Okay? Now, that's rare. That's why it made such news all over the state, because it doesn't happen every day. But what does happen every day is managers who are tasked with being the go-between between the board, who are a bunch of volunteers that don't want to listen to the minutia of all the issues you have. That's why they have management. But then they ignore your stuff. Hey, I've got a leak, or hey, I've got this, or I've got this, or I need this fixed, and they ignore you. That's inappropriate. Okay. That's why talking to the neighbors, which is the first thing I said, is so important. When you have an issue, and you write to the management company, are they responsive? If the answer is yes, good. Right. That's the most important thing. Are they responsive? Okay. So if you can ask me specific questions, I can answer those, but it's such a broad topic. It's hard
I understand. All right, so let me go on to the next thing. Is I've heard this, but I want to hear from you if it's true, that you need to stay away from multi-unit living condos where there is an X number percentage of renters. You want more owners than renters. Is that true? And what is that percentage?
That is a great question. Obviously, there are exceptions to everything. It depends on the deal you're getting, right? There aren't like psychological studies that are done on this, but there have been reports and analyses that have been done by various real estate groups. And I think you're asking the question because it's kind of common sense that the more renters there are in a community, the potential for it not being as nice goes up. And that's because people that don't own it aren't invested in the same way. When you own where you live, you are much more careful about taking care of it. And that is kind of just human nature. So I wouldn't personally purchase well, let me caveat this. I wouldn't purchase to be my main place to live in a place where there were a lot of renters. If I was buying a property as an investment property, just like other people might be, then I wouldn't really care, would I? If I'm putting it on Airbnb or I'm going to make it available on any one of those kinds of websites, I wouldn't care. But if this is going to be where I'm going to live, I want to live where there's actually owners living there, not renters. I don't have a percentage to give you that's good because it really depends on the location of the unit. Okay, if it's near the high school that we grew up in Long Beach going to, it's going to be a very different percentage than if the amount of renters is in Bixby Hills, or because I know maybe many of your listeners might be in Long Beach, right, or in that area. So it really depends where the property is and the socioeconomic background of that area. But in general, renters do affect not only property values. The higher percentage of renters, the lower the property values are. It's just the way it is. And again, that's just going to be human nature. So I can't give you a percentage, but I would be wary of that.
Okay, so
fortunately,
go on.
This is important. Fortunately, a lot of HOAs have instituted controls within the confines of the Davis-Sterling Act, which is the law that controls HOAs in California, okay? Residential HOAs. And there are legal, if you ask me about them, I'll tell you, there are limitations on what an HOA can and can't allow when it comes to rental properties in California. But a lot of HOAs have implemented those controls to keep the amount of rentals down.
Right.
So the chance of you running into a situation in a place where it's not expected to be rental properties is probably low, so you're probably going to be okay.
Okay. So let me just put in my opinion. I asked you that because it is a question that people talk about a lot. But I personally think people are invested in where they live because they live there and they don't want it to be crappy. My parents, I'm African American, actually rented most of their life, and they wanted things to be nice because they wanted things to be nice for their children. So I actually think that that's a prejudice that
might be
that, you know, it really just depends on if it's a high-end place and the people that are living there because it's a very expensive city and they can't afford to buy. It could be a doctor and a nurse, but they literally can't afford to buy.
I agree with you. Let me interrupt. Let me clarify something. You're absolutely right. I'm only telling you that because that's what. Whether or not it's true is irrelevant.
Right.
That's the perception.
That is the perception.
And that is what the all of the literature on the topic says.
Right.
I did an article a year or two ago, and it's probably on my it is on my website. I just don't remember what the topic was, so I couldn't even tell you what the article was. Where I touched on that study, or that not study, but that report.
Okay.
And it was written by some real estate related organization in California that's got a lot of clout.
Right.
I don't remember anything about it.
Right.
It was commenting on it at the time, and I couldn't even tell you. You'd have to read everything on there. And that's, like I said, over 180 of those. So go figure. But it's certainly, that is not a hard and fast rule. I have seen many exceptions to that where renters, I rented.
Right.
You know, for a lot of my life. I was a renter till after I became a lawyer.
Right.
Okay. And I was a student growing up, and I took fantastic care of where I lived. It depends on the individual.
Certainly.
But statistically, I think there's probably something to that.
I'm sure there is.
And I'm sure there's a lot of prejudice involved in that as well. I will say this, though, also as an add-on to what you said, especially in California. I looked at this statistic yesterday.
Oh, cool.
I was studying something else. I was analyzing something for the article I just published this morning before you got here. And yesterday, I came upon this statistic. In California today, the median, and they said they used average and median as the same word, even though they aren't technically the same. So I'm not sure which it is. Either the median or the average age for a homeowner in California, guess what it is?
34.
49.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
That doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of 25, 30, 35-year-old homeowners, okay? But the median or average age, at least according to this study, was 49.
Because you have to be, because it's so expensive, you have to wait.
Because the prices here, this generation coming up, the Z people, X's and Z's, right, have a very different scenario than you and I as Gen X. So not X's, I meant
the millennials
and the Z's, right?
Z's,
and maybe the alphas, whatever they are, okay? They're in a very different situation.
True.
Okay?
True.
And I think it's unique to our history, at least in California.
I agree.
It sucks. But that staggered me. I thought it was going to be like 35.
Right.
I was floored.
Yeah.
I was off by 15 years.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
So I have a question that is specifically because we're talking about women. So what can a potential buyer do to find out the number of units in a condo that are being Airbnb'd where the owner actually lives there? Because a woman doesn't necessarily want to be in a place where there's always strangers. Okay. I know a lot of people who make their mortgage, they live there, but they have a room and they're letting people,
So wait, are you asking about how do you find out how many owners are opening their homes up to Airbnb, but the owner's still living there as well?
Exactly. Or the other way.
Or it's
just Airbnb. Just
because
like, how can
then you can have all strangers.
Exactly. Okay. How can I find out, how many strangers are going to be?
That's a good question.
It's a safety issue for women.
So here's the thing. I talked to you a few minutes ago about what the HOA could and couldn't do in terms of regulating rentals. And rentals are broken into two broad categories. Short-term rentals, which in California would be defined as 30 days or less, and then anything 31 or more, okay? Like a yearly lease, for example, okay? HOAs that are in compliance with the Davis-Sterling Act and have in their governing documents the ability to control some numbers here will be able to tell you what percentage of their units are available for rent. That would mean either a long-term renter or a short-term renter.
Okay.
Very few are going to actually be able to divide into that and give you a number on just the short term, which is what Airbnb would be defined as. Okay. Right. So you aren't going to be able to get, very unlikely that anybody's going to be able to say, okay, we have 158 units in this complex and 72 are open for rent, and of those, 35 are short-term. You're not going to get that. What you might be able to get, depending on if the HOA actually has implemented the proper controls that they should, if they're interested in that sort of thing, they'll be able to say 1 out of 4 units is rented because they're allowed to bar 3 out of 4. That's the maximum they can bar under the law.
Okay.
Okay. So an HOA cannot ban more than 3 out of 4 units from being a rental.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. But they can, that's another way to say they can limit it to 1 and 4.
Okay.
Either way.
So when they say rental, are people who are renting a room, short-term or long-term, in their home that they live in, are they included in that?
Well, yes, except on the big exception. Again, because this is such a broad topic, and I've got multiple episodes on rentals and multiple articles on my website. Everything we're talking about, I have specific articles on.
I know you do. That's why I came to you.
That go into these details. So here's the funny thing. You know what an ADR is, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
But our listeners might not.
Okay,
so.
okay. So they're, granny flats.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Those are not only guaranteed under California law, so HOAs cannot prevent you from building one.
Okay, right.
Okay, they can't prevent you from. Did I say ADR? I meant ADU. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I knew you meant additional dwelling
unit.
unit. I know you did.
No, so ADU stands for an accessory dwelling unit, or they're known as granny flats, or they're known as guest houses, whatever. And there are rules.
Casitas, whatever.
Casitas is yes, exactly. So California law makes it is a matter of public policy in California because of the housing crisis and housing shortage, not to bar the construction of ADUs as long as the laws on ADUs are being followed and all the safety regulations and permitting is being followed. It has to be permitted. It has to it has to follow certain size limitations and entrance and kitchen and accoutrement limitations. But an HOA can't prevent you from building one. Well, funny enough, even if an HOA has implemented restraints on rentals appropriately under California law, those do not apply to ADUs. So if you live, now I'll give you a little bit more on the law. HOAs can absolutely ban short-term rentals completely, 100% ban on anything 30 days or less.
Okay.
So they can prevent Airbnb completely. So that you will know. You ask.
Okay.
Okay, you ask that question.
Got it.
Because you're going to get a copy, as I said, it's mandatory. You're going to get a copy of the CC&Rs, the rules, architectural guidelines, all governing documents. It has to be in one of those, otherwise it's not implemented.
Got it.
So if there's a ban on short-term rentals, it'll be in those documents. So look for that. HOAs cannot, however, completely ban 31 days or more rentals. They can put that percentage, that 1 in 4. They can limit it to 1 in 4. That's the max. Okay, so they can't ban more than 3 out of 4, in other words, okay? ADUs don't count at all. So if you have an ADU, you can rent it out to anybody you want, regardless of whether or not your HOA has in place a percentage and it's at its maximum. It's irrelevant. And that you'll never be able to tell either.
Okay.
Okay, it's very unlikely unless, and here's the only unless, HOAs are allowed, if it's in their governing documents, and you'll find it when you read them, if it's in their governing documents, they are allowed to say, look, if you're going to rent, you need to provide us with a copy of the lease.
Got it.
If it's in there, then the HOA should have a copy of the lease, and so ask for redacted copies of every lease and then do your own
Okay.
math. That's a lot of work.
It is.
Talk to neighbors and ask them, do you have the impression that we have a lot of rentals here? Also, look where you are. If you're a block from Disneyland, higher percentage chance.
Right.
Higher percentage chance, right?
Right.
Than if you're in wherever,
Right.
normal, nobody's going to vacation there. Nobody cares. Like
Right.
where we grew up.
Right. Nobody cares. Yeah.
Right?
Who cares? Right.
If you're 2 blocks from the Queen Mary, maybe.
Right.
Right? So it depends, but just that's why talking to the people that live there is a great way. And not just one person. You might get a crazy person. Talk to 2 or 3.
Okay.
Before
So
you buy.
then my other question is, what do people need to look at if they don't think that this condo is going to be their last residence? So I'm going to give you a specific example.
Please.
My girlfriend got divorced. She bought into a multi-dwelling unit, and she knows that she can't rent it for the reasons that you described. So her plan is...
Well, she could rent it if she wanted to, because remember, the HOA can't ban it completely.
That's true.
Short term.
It's short term. So she wants to, when she moves out of it, have her son live in it
Okay.
She knows that her son by himself can't afford the mortgage, so he would get roommates. Where does she need to look to see if that's allowed?
Okay, so here's the thing. And there is nothing in the law, in the Davis-Sterling Act, that is right on point on that. And I've written, and I can't tell you which article, I actually covered that issue in one of my articles on short-term rentals in the last 6 months. So something in 2025.
I'll look on your website.
Okay, and so I can't remember which one, but there's very little the HOA will be able to do to prevent. First of all, there's nothing they can do to prevent her son from moving in.
Right.
At all, period.
Right.
Okay? As for having a roommate rent a room, there's going to be very little the HOA is going to be able to do to prevent that.
Good.
It's different than renting out the house completely.
Good.
Okay? Because under California law, there's not only does California law very broadly define family or family unit, but more importantly, it's really a lot harder to control renting out a room than it is renting out your whole unit. Now, that being said, if we're being technical, it might fall under the same guidelines, but I wouldn't care.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So I don't think it's reasonable, or I don't think it's realistic for an HOA to actually be able to discipline you for that.
Okay.
And if they did, I would take that case.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd go after the HOA for that.
All right. And then my last question is, you as an owner are having difficulties with the board or with the HOA management company.
Mm-hmm.
Before they call you.
Of course.
Because when they call you, they got to come to the table with, 20 grand, 30 grand. They got to be able to pay for it.
No, actually, let me correct you on that. So one of the things I created that created this niche, and it's the system and practice that I put into place about 15 years ago that the two other biggest HOA-side law firms in California are using, because the owners, the founding partners of both those firms that compete with me, all worked for me.
Of course they did.
Okay?
All right.
Every
so we're talking to
them.
the OG right here. So go on.
So one of the things I did was I created the pre-litigation phase.
Yes.
Okay? And I utilized at the time, a little-known part of the Davis-Sterling Act, which actually only applies to a very small percentage of HOA cases where ADR prior to filing litigation is mandatory. Mm-hmm. And I started steering 99% of my clients into that ADR for two reasons. One, because I can get you through ADR for a sum that is pretty much, if you're a normal person, you're not crazy.
Right.
Your case is a normal case with nothing really weird in it. I can get you through it and pretty much right on the nose tell you what you're going to spend right up front. And it's between 11 or 12 and 15,000.
Oh, okay.
So I know what you're going to spend.
Okay.
And I'll usually be able to get half of that back for you.
Right.
Okay. Also, number two, I can negotiate things in the course and scope of an ADR, which in the context of the Davis-Sterling Act is actually mediation. Okay. Mm-hmm. I can negotiate things for you that you're technically not entitled to if you were to go to court. For example, I've had HOAs agree to have a board member step off the board and not run again for 10 years as a contract provision, when I would never be able to
get that
because the court's not going to intervene in something like that in the democratic process.
Right.
So stuff like that. So those two reasons I created this, and we settle about 60% of our cases through ADR, where you never even have to file a lawsuit at all. So it's going to be less than that. Our standard retainer for a pre-lit case is $5,000. But you're right. They're going to come to the table having to spend money.
Right.
So I think you were going to ask me, what should our people try to do before that happens?
Bingo.
I got your answer. Very simple. And again, I have articles up the...
Right. So first thing is buy your book, read it, and see if their situation is addressed in the book.
Because I have a whole section of my book about IDR.
Right.
Internal Dispute Resolution. And I recommend not hiring a law firm to help you through that, although we've had many people do that. You don't need to. So I'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
Number one, remember four things, okay? Everything, every communication, every time you have a phone call with a manager or a director about something that is relevant to your dispute, document it in writing. If it didn't happen in writing, it never happened at all.
Right.
An email. If you're doing emails back and forth or text messages back and forth, great. You keep those. If there's a phone call, you send an email out just saying, this confirms the conversation where we discussed the following, where we agreed on the following and we disagreed on the following. And if I'm incorrect about any of these facts, please let me know in writing immediately. Mm-hmm. Okay? Everything has to be in writing. Mm-hmm. Number two, assume in the future, if you ever take this somewhere or the HOA takes it somewhere, depending on the facts, assume that a jury or judge or other people might be looking at that email. And so write it professionally without emotion. Take out the personal attacks. Maybe write it, get your thoughts out, get your anger out, call them all sorts of names, run it through ChatGPT, tell it to make it professional. It'll strip out all the bad stuff and send that. But keep it professional and keep it emotion free, because if you are if you're trying to handle, every single thing in every email, so you're throwing back all the history of everything that's ever happened, you lose the forest for the trees. You lose your message, you lack credibility, all the things that happen when you aren't going to be taken seriously.
Right.
Because you're not writing clearly and you're not writing objectively.
Sounds like same with divorce, but go on.
Right. So keep it business. Okay. Write what you want for yourself and then run it through something, or run it through a personal filter, a friend, let them pull out all the crap and send the right thing. That's number 2. Number 3, keep a log. And if you're being religious in your writing, then you don't have to have the log, because your emails or text messages will serve that log. But otherwise, keep a log with dates, times, and just 1 or 2 sentence summary and who's involved. Okay. All that is going to be valuable to you if you ever need to do something. If you don't, great, keep it, just store it. But if you do, you're going to be glad you have it.
Right.
Okay. And the last thing is utilize the tools that you have at your disposal. So what are those tools? Well, number 1 is the Davis-Sterling Act. I have a whole chapter in my book about chapter 12, taking everything that you learned throughout the book and then creating leverage, and stacking rights. So look at your governing documents. I have a podcast episode and an article on all the parts of the CC&Rs you can ignore and all the parts you should just read. Okay. Because let's say it's a 200-page document. I got it down to 20 pages.
Got it.
All right. Just read those 20 and then ignore everything else unless you need it in the future. Right. So look at what you've got. Well, one of those rights that's given to you under the Davis-Sterling Act is called IDR, which stands for Internal Dispute Resolution. Okay. So here's what you have to know about that. Number 1, if a homeowner requests it in writing, the HOA is obligated by law to participate. And what that means is that the HOA has to appoint at least one of the directors to sit down with you and go over your dispute.
Got it.
There are no lawyers. You can have one, and so can they, but they're not required.
Got it.
The location of the IDR is to be determined mutually. Okay. Neither side is supposed to take steps to pressure the other side not to engage. Regardless of what your governing documents say, and a lot of governing documents try to push this, requiring IDR before you can take legal action, that's garbage. If the HOA is requesting it, the homeowner has the option to reject it or accept it. If the homeowner asks for it, it's mandatory.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
So IDR. I want to sit down I am now hereby invoking my right to IDR. I want to sit down with one or more of the directors and talk about XYZ, whatever it is. Okay. They should set a time, a date, and a location, or do it via Zoom. Okay. Either way. It could be at the clubhouse. It could be at your office. It could be at somebody else's. It could be your home. It could be in the park. It could be at the pool. It doesn't matter. You sit down and you go over the stuff. Okay. Okay. Now, is IDR helpful? Sometimes. When would I reject IDR? When it's going to be fruitless. Okay. If you're dealing with really egotistical or there's a lot of anger or hate involved between personalities,
or you greatly suspect they're doing shady stuff,
and they know that now, right. IDR is probably not going to help. I wouldn't waste my time. Okay. Okay. So I'd move at that point. I would document. So what you do is you document the problem. Here's what I suspect is happening. Here's what is happening. Here's what I've seen. You are on notice now. I'm watching. That's the first thing. Now, here's one other thing that's the most powerful tool that's available to a homeowner to get to the bottom of things. Okay. I have multiple podcasts on this, including one specifically engineered just for this. It's the one on 5200. Okay. And I have all of chapter 4 of my book is dedicated to this one topic, and that is your rights under Civil Code 5200 et sec. And here's what 5200 is. It is an incredible wide variety of documents that every HOA member is entitled to by law. It includes more documents than you can imagine. You are entitled to all financial records, every checkbook, every copy of every canceled check on an HOA account, every profit and loss statement, every tax return, the bank statements, reimbursement requests. You are entitled to the extent they're taken, any of the either monthly or annual reconciliation of those accounts. And this goes for not only maintenance accounts and operating accounts, but the reserve account. You're entitled to obviously all the governing documents. You're entitled to the name, address, telephone number, and email address of every member of the HOA unless they've explicitly opted out, which nobody ever does.
Right.
And a whole host. I have in my book and on the article on my website and in the podcast a literal list of all the documents that I've ever asked for in my professional capacity and the statutory basis for every one of them.
Wow.
Okay. And all you got to do is just copy and paste it. Okay. So when you want stuff, I want a copy of, and you list those. And I teach how to do it in the book. And in my article, I tell you how to do it, how to word things so that you're making different requests, because every request, if they don't give you the document, you're entitled to up to $500 in penalties, as well as your attorney's fees and costs if you have to go to court to compel them to give you the documents.
Wow.
I teach you how to ask, how to implement your rights under Civil Code 5215D, which is to the extent you're going to withhold any documents or redact any, tell me what you're withholding or redacting and why.
Or else give me my money.
Exactly. And if they don't, again, attorney's fees and $500 penalty per. So just to give you an example, we had a document request we did months and months ago, 21 separate requests. HOA played games, didn't respond fully to all of them. We brought them up on a writ. We're seeking 12, whatever the math is, 500 times 21, whatever that math is. And at this point, because they have fought so hard, it's like $40,000 in attorney's fees. And we got it.
Now, in a situation like that, are the people just lazy, or are they doing something shady and
They're
they
doing
don't
something
want
shady and they don't want the truth? But my client is going to find it. And the court then, so we went all the way to court. We were awarded turnover everything. They were given an order to do that. We were awarded $40,000 in attorney's fees. We were awarded the whatever many thousand in sanctions for $500 times 21. And they only partially produced and complied. So now we're going up for contempt.
Wow. Amazing.
And we'll get more fees. And now some of the directors are going to have some personal liability.
Wow. So so here's my last question.
So that's what you do. You implement your 5200 rights.
Right.
You demand IDR.
Right.
You document everything. And then when that doesn't work, you come to us.
That's when you come to
or if it's gone beyond, if for example, if they've implemented a foreclosure, if they've implemented a lien, at that point, you don't have time.
You need to come to a lawyer right away. Right. So, okay. First of all, my last question is going to be, is there any overarching thing you want women to know in particular about when they buy into a condo?
Yes.
But the question before that is this. If me and the husband that's about to leave me, if our biggest asset is our home, and he's like, I'm leaving, I got a new side piece I like or better, whatever. Am I better off going to a divorce lawyer first stop, or am I better off coming to a real estate lawyer if the biggest thing that we own together is
you go to a family law lawyer?
Okay.
The division of assets is purely a matter of family law. There are lots of things that can, generally speaking, a married couple that owns a home that's owned as community property, but there are a lot of things that can affect the relative value of each of their community interests in the property, and that's going to be something that a family law lawyer is going to be able to answer and address, especially in the context of the actual divorce.
Right.
Because the family law court has the jurisdiction to make the determination as to the distribution of those assets. So it doesn't matter what a real estate lawyer tells you if the family law court's going to have a different view.
Okay.
And there are so many things that could happen that would affect how that's held. You got to go see your family law lawyer.
Okay.
That's the most important lawyer.
That's the most important.
For that.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that once you come to me, you have had a distribution. Okay. You've either sold the family home and the assets have been split, or it's pending and you're looking ahead to doing it. You're just shopping around right now. Right. But that job has already been done by the lawyer that specializes in that area of the law, which we do not. Right. We don't touch family law. I don't know a damn thing about the family code.
Got it. Okay, so what is the thing you want women to know the most?
You are on your own. Obviously, that doesn't include friends and people you trust. But when I say you're on your own, I mean take responsibility for your life and yourself. Read the documents and do the research you have to do. And from research, I don't mean exploring Reddit, okay? I mean looking at reputable expert sources like my book or my podcast or my articles, okay? Somebody that you know knows what they're doing in that area of the law. Read what you have to read so that you are comfortable with making the decisions you have to make. Because buying a condominium is much riskier than buying a single-family home. Now, it can be a wonderful investment. I've owned 2 or 3 condos, 3. I've owned 3 condos in California, 2 of which I rented out as as rentals. I've since sold them because once California became, pretty much a socialized, rental market a few years ago under Gavin Newsom, I just sold because it's not worth it anymore. But if this is going to be where you're going to live, at least for several years, you want to make sure you're making a wise financial decision so that your money works for you. Because the downside of that California thing where 49%, 49-year-old is average, you are an owner now, and it's probably going to go way up. Okay? And so you want to foster that. Take care of that as your biggest investment. You just said it is. It is. So you take responsibility for your own decisions, do your research, and ask questions. Don't trust your real estate agent to answer all these questions because they do not have expertise and knowledge of any of the stuff we've talked about. They might know a little bit here and there, but their knowledge is going to be non-systematic anyway.
Right.
Okay. So number one is take responsibility for yourself. And number two is, to the extent that you need help doing that, lean on people you trust in your life. Father, brother, sister, best friend, whatever. Lean on those people to help you with review of those docs or review those decisions.
Right.
I have people, I don't like numbers. So I have people help me when it comes to looking at numbers.
Right. Got it.
I go to a friend and say, I have a friend, Matt.
Right.
Every time there's numbers involved, I'm going to negotiate a sale of a whatever. I'm going to buy something big. Matt comes with me.
Got it.
Because I'm emotional.
Right.
And I don't like numbers, and that's a very dangerous combination.
Right.
Matt comes with me because he's great at numbers. That's his area of expertise, and he's not emotional. He's ready to walk away.
Got it.
And he'll grab me and make me walk away. So I implement a tool, Matt, to help me.
I understand.
So know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then
my last question is, can we have you back?
Anytime you want.
Fantastic. It has been a pleasure. This is Michael Kushner. His book is HOA Hell, California Homeowners Definitive Guide to Beating Bad HOAs. It is on Amazon. I highly recommend it. But also, if you have a question like right this second, he is not kidding when he says he's got 1,000,001 topics covered on his blog, on his website. Go there for a search.
mbkchapman.com.
mbkchapman.com. Thank you so much for being with us today. Really
You're welcome,
appreciate
Adreana. And obviously, it's great to see you. And for those who don't know, we've known each other since at least 7th grade.
Yeah, forever. Long before menopause. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.